Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back into the studio. It's Leppy Duels. It's episode 23. Thanks so much for joining us this week. If you haven't been here before, here's how the show works. In a moment, you're going to meet our 4 distinguished guests. Each of those guests will go 1v1 versus the other 3 contestants. Each of those contestants will have 1 minute to deliver their points on the assigned debate topic, along with an additional 20 seconds to respond to their opponent's comments. After that, I, as the host, will determine a winner of each duel, and the first one to fill up their scoring bar wins the episode. Let's meet this week's cast. First up, joining us after his win in Peoria, Illinois at Ledgestone, live from Lake Eureka, it's Trevor Harbolt. Taking on Trevor in round 1, filling in for the second straight episode, thanks again to Dick Engelman. Our third guest this week is the winningest player in Leppy Duels history, the brand manager at Great Lakes Disc, Brian Papa Wolf Frawley. And finally, rounding out the cast, returning from his long trip overseas in Europe, he's the brand manager at Latitude 64, Seth Fendley. Thanks for joining us, all 4 of you. Excited to get things rolling this week. Trevor, you are up first. Kicking us off, Simon Lizotte made some news on hole 16 this past week at Deglow in the final round when he threw over literally everything to get a penalty stroke for par 10 feet from the basket and essentially guaranteeing himself the win with 2 holes to play. Some drama ensued, some different thoughts came from different perspectives, but I want to know, is there a long-term fallout to that decision on hole 16 by Simon? Trevor?
I mean, the bigger picture is he played smarter than everybody else on that hole. Let's be real. The rules stated that, you take it where you go out of bounds at, and everybody was trying to go down the tunnel, and he went over top like Simon does and played a smart move. I think that it's dumb that we have this kind of OB thing, like on an island hole where you can just put it in. You should have had a drop zone, or maybe make it stroke and distance on stuff like that so people can't do things like that. So as far as a fallout, I don't know if it's a fallout or if it's something that we're going to see a change in the way the islands are played and the way that OB is played maybe in the near future with the Pro Tour and the PDGA. But I think it was a smart move by Simon. He solidified his win with that shot, and everybody was like, what is going on? But on Deglow, on that hole, I don't think it's ever been OB before. So that could be something that's came out. It was new. Like they thought about OB, but they didn't think about the way that Simon or somebody with a big arm would throw. So if that hole didn't have OB, he's 60 long and he's putting for a crazy birdie putt. But I think he played it smart, and we'll see what comes of this after the fallout of all of it.
All right, Dick.
So I agree. I think it was a very smart move and everything, and that. I think it was an oversight by some of the folks who set up that course, and I'm not trying to call them out or anything, but they definitely didn't think of that. We know that. It's a brand new out-of-bounds area, the island, and if it's still that way next year and they don't have to go to the drop zone, I think that's shame on them. But for this year, I don't know where he got that idea from, if he already thought of that going into the round or in previous rounds, but that was genius. I mean, he really was smart making that move. And Allen Iverson said it. He played to win the game, and he did. And that's the move that sealed it for him, basically. So, I mean, if it's changed next year, sure, it should be, probably. But this year, the rules are rules, and he played by the rules, and he won because of it. So that's all I got to say.
All right, Trevor, separate yourself a little bit more if you can. You did touch on like a future fallout of this decision by Simon, even insinuating maybe a PDGA situation with stroke and distance changing, or the Pro Tour stroke and distance changing. Build on that a little bit.
Yeah, so I think basically when it comes down to it is stroke and distance would be a great thing, I think, for shots like this, maybe on entire courses, so people can't throw just right next to the basket OB and take an easy par or an easy birdie. Some people will say, like me, who's getting older, who can't throw that far, have to actually play the hole the way it's played. So I think it's something that they should look at with OBs and with island shots. So I think Simon, again, played the right way, and if I had his cannon of an arm, I probably would have done the exact same thing to secure my win. So kudos to him on the rest of it, if you ask me.
All right, Dick, can you win another duel against Trevor?
Should be easy. I mean, one thing we haven't discussed is the Eagles started off that hole he shot before Simon did, and so he was already out of bounds, and so that made Simon's choice even easier to make that out of bounds stroke and just take that punishment a little bit. I think if Eagle was in bounds, it would have been a different story, and maybe he was going to still pump the guts up the middle there, but he didn't need to. He already saw Eagle out of bounds. He was the only guy that was close to him, and again, he played to win the game, and he did.
Well said. I think it's important, Dick, that you brought up the Eagle throwing first thing and throwing OB to take a bogey situation. I think that's really important to recognize. If we're sticking to the question itself, though, Trevor, I got to give you the win here in the opening duel. So that sends us to duel number 2, Brian and Seth. Seth returns from his world travels over in Europe. Let's see what he's got for us. Question number 2, Manabu Kajiyama, speaking of world travelers, he's back in the USA for the first time in a while. He's the highest rated player in the world, shows up at D-Glow, finishes bottom 10. How much are you reading into this, Brian?
Listen, ratings are based on your competition and how much you beat your competition by, in Manu's case, and how your rating will increase based on that. That's a very loose definition, but we're going to go with that for my argument. Manu has played a lot of events, and that's super awesome. His last event, he was the highest rated player by 20 points. His event prior to that, highest rated player by 35 points. His event prior to that by 50 plus points. You get my point here. The competition that Manu is going up against just isn't the same. I don't think there's much to read into it. I don't think that we have to be rude or anything. Manu went up against a much higher average player than he is used to, and I'm going to throw it out there. I assume on a course that he doesn't play often. That's just my assumption. I don't think he plays Toboggan too often. Yes, it's unfortunate. We were all really excited. I wish he was on camera round 1. I think that was a miss by the PDGA. But yes, we shouldn't read too much into it.
Brian, I don't think it needs to be an assumption. I think he definitely doesn't play Toboggan. Seth, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think that there's a little bit to learn from this, and we can build off of what Brian has said in regards to ratings, right? So the reality is that any players who are playing outside of the primary tours, being the U.S. Tour and even now the Euro Tour, are seeing issues where their ratings don't accurately reflect how they play. And so they get these ratings that make them seem like they're greater players than they are, and then they go to these events and they don't match up. And what that shows to us is really a flaw in the rating system, or at the very least, a flaw in how we are using the ratings to judge how players play. I think at the end of the day, as Brian described ratings, they're doing their job. But the reality is that as the tours grow, it's almost to a point to where ratings don't matter, right? It's almost to a point to where we need to be focusing on the tour standings and not so much the ratings to really build the storylines.
All right, you guys both had great points there. Now get a little bit more direct if you can. Why do you deserve to win this duel, Brian?
Yeah, no knock on him. I don't think this is his fault in any way. We've beaten the rating system here like a dead horse on this show. We'll beat it again more. Congrats, Seth. But more importantly, I think it's a lot of situation here. He came over, played a course he probably doesn't play too often against competition he's not used to playing against over 4 days, and he traveled halfway across the world. I hope and I expect his rating to be better over his next 2 events at the 50th annual Rochester Flying Disc Open, Jim Palmer Flying Disc Open, and then at Worlds. I assume we see an increase there.
Seth?
Yeah, so Brian says not to read anything into it. I'm here saying, we should read something into it in regards to how we're assessing the top talent in the sport. And so I think at the end of the day, when we're making a decision on how the outcome of this debate is, we look at, are we just talking about a singular player, or are we talking about the entire sport as a whole? And I brought in a significant larger portion of the discussion here.
But the thing was about one guy.
Good stuff from both of you guys there. I think it's important, Seth, that you continue to beat the same point over and over that plenty of contestants have done on this show. And that's the fact that ratings don't really matter for the top level. And to be honest, they're not really serving any purpose at all on the Pro Tour at this point. So I'm glad you said that. However, I think if we're looking at this question by itself, I think Brian answered it much more directly and concisely. So with plenty of points to back it up. So Brian takes the win here in duel number 2. Sends us to duel number 3. Brian, you're back up. You're taking on Dick. Kristen Tattar won the European Championships this past week and continues to dominate over there as well as in the United States. So she's headed back to the States now for Worlds. Is she already the greatest FPO player of all time, Brian?
Listen, I don't think she's the best of all time yet. Maybe that's just me liking Jordan more than LeBron, but I just think that she is having an extremely great season, maybe the best FPO season of all time. And if you look at the 2020 on, you can definitely say she's winning this decade. That's super important to note here, but she is not a 5-time world champion. We have a few of those in this sport. Albeit, years past, smaller fields, things like that. But that being said, she is not at that level yet. With her stats, she's not the most money ever for an FPO player. She's not the biggest contract ever for an FPO player. Those are things that I kind of look at to pad those stats of, are you the greatest yet? She is having a great season, maybe the second greatest disc golf season of all time behind Macbeth's 2015, but unfortunately it's just not, she's not the GOAT yet.
Okay, Dick, is Kristen Tattar the GOAT?
She, at this point, yes, I think she is. She has been so consistent. Anytime she's been over here, and you take out a couple years with COVID, imagine if she had been over in America for those tournaments as well. I enjoy the longevity, argument that Brian's giving you. Like, she has not won the 5 world championships. She hasn't gotten the most cash ever, whatever else. But you put her up against anybody right now, she's the best. And the best are still playing, because before that it was Paige Pierce. But right now it's Kristen Tattar. She is always on fire. I hope she didn't get hurt over there at the championship, but she's unbeatable. She's always on the podium, and if she ever even loses, it's by close. But she's always blowing people out, just like LeBron James being the best player ever. That's Kristen Tattar.
All right, bringing in the LeBron versus Jordan debate into Kristen Tattar best of all time debate. I love it, Dick. Brian, respond to his comments.
Yeah, it's just very short-sighted to only look at recent history. Yes, she is a great player, but going back to all of the wonderful back stats, she's not the highest-rated woman of all time. She doesn't have the most world championships of all time. She doesn't have the most elite majors of all time. Is she the GOAT was the question. Is she the greatest player right now? Like today, heads up, I would definitely pick her over everyone else. But in the GOAT, as in greatest of all time, she does not have the time over this period to win that argument.
Dick, defend yourself.
I think if you we both assume Paige Pierce, you're saying, is the best of all time.
I don't know, Paige in her prime, Juliana in her prime.
They're
both great.
Not Juliana, but either way, right now, Tattar is better than Paige at her best. And there's way more competition right now than there was, 5-10 years ago when Paige is winning her world championships. And I know she's had some more recently, but she's done that over the last 10-15 years, whereas Tattar is going when it's the best competition ever. And there's no doubt about that. So she is the best ever right now and for the past few years. And I consider her to be the best going forward for the next 5-10 years.
All right, so this is a debate that's going to continue to be had across disc golf for the next decade or so while Tattar is in her prime. Dick, I thought you should have led with Tattar at her best is better than Paige Pierce at her best, and built off of that argument. I thought you missed that opportunity. Brian had better points. Brian had better points to win this one. He's going to take this duel down. Sends us to duel number 4, Seth versus Trevor. Seth, you are leading us off here. UDisc upgraded their annual pro account to $29.99 for the year. What does this do for the sport? What kind of impact does this have on the sport as a whole, Seth?
Yeah, so I think that it actually shows that we're progressing, right? Like, I see a lot of people complaining about the price raising, but then when you take into comparison other sports and the apps that are associated with them, the prices are right in line with those sports. And I think that what UDisc is looking towards is how they can be sustainable for the future. As someone who has worked closely with those guys in the past, I know that they're focused on not just having a sustainable business, but on growing the sport. And so they wouldn't be making this change if they didn't think that it was going to have a positive impact for the sport. Additionally, one of the things that they are doing with this promotion of the price raise is they're actually making scorecards free, or more of them free than were currently free. And so I think that they're even opening up more access inside the app to help sustain that price raise.
Well said, Seth. Trevor?
First of all, I want to say from the last one that the GOAT in women's disc golf hasn't even touched the disc yet. So, but we'll go on to this one. $29.99 for UDisc. I'm signing up all day. I think UDisc, again, I've harped on UDisc for so many times on this podcast or this duel, is that they are one of the driving forces in our sport to gain all this exposure. You can do so much on UDisc, and I think it's worth $29.99 all day. Because you can do so many different things. You can keep the scorecards, but you said it's like a free scorecard. I mean, I don't really understand that because we're still paying for it, so it's not really free. But UDisc is the most polarizing thing in our sport for me, and for any amateur that's on the course. And a lot of the pros, they keep their stats. I go through all the time and check out my stats and see how I did on a course and know how to go through a course and manage it because of UDisc. But I think it's great for $29.99. You can see where all the courses are in the entire world, take you directions to it. You can hook up with your friends. It's perfect. It's the greatest thing ever for disc golf, if you ask me.
All right, everybody's loving on UDisc here. Seth, separate yourself if you can. Why do you deserve to win duel number 4?
Yeah, so I think that the reality here is that it's not just about a love fest, right? It's about understanding the impact that this has on the sport, both from a price raising side of things, where it shows that people in the sport are willing to pay more, but additionally in the whole ethos that is UDisc in growing the sport. And so, as I said in my first speech, if they wouldn't be doing this if they didn't think that they were going to grow the sport through this. And so I think ultimately that's the biggest impact here, and that's the positive to take away from this.
Trevor, respond.
Well, I'm glad you just won this argument for me, because I said that a long time ago, that UDisc is one, if not one of the single most biggest things that's happened for our sport to get more people in it and to continue the growth of our sport. I think UDisc is one of the biggest things that's happened in our sport. So I know what you're saying. You're saying that more money brings more sustainability, which is perfect, but it's also going to give them so many more things to do within the app. When you're getting more money, you can set up so many cooler things. So we'll see what the future holds for UDisc as the money comes in, and see what they could use it for within the app to make it even better for all the players across the world that use it.
Good stuff, Trevor. And like I said, you guys have a lot of love for UDisc, both of you guys. I think that's fantastic. If we're looking at this particular question, though, Trevor, I'm going to nitpick you a little bit. What was the impact of the $29.99 price increase? Seth answered that. You just looked at the bigger picture of UDisc as a whole, so Seth's going to win duel number 4. Sends us to duel number 5. We've got Seth versus Dick here. Worlds is coming up. It's obviously the big ticket item here in the next week and a half. Who is the FPO dark horse best poised to knock off Kristen Tattar, Seth?
Yeah, so I'm going with a up-and-coming Finnish player, the person who sought to track down Kristen at the European Championships this past weekend, and that is Silva Saarinen. If you have not seen Silva, Silva is probably the next greatest thing for FPO. She was at the Schleppia Open just taking the guys' lunch money in putting games. She's working harder than any FPO player that I've seen in regards to building her game and getting her game to the point to where she can compete. And she was the one chasing down Kristen when she faltered. And so, if you're looking for a dog horse, you're looking at Silva. She did not have strong performances when she played here earlier this season in the U.S., but I think her time on the course in Europe this year helped build that stamina to get her to a point to be the dark horse for Worlds.
Okay, Trevor, who's your FPO dark horse?
You mean Dick?
Yeah, Dick, sorry. Yes.
It's all good, baby. You just gave me a little more time to think about it, but I want to first ask a question. Is Natalie Ryan playing this weekend? Or at Worlds, whatever, next weekend? Yes, then that's my answer. I know she did not do well at D-Glow, but she's done well at this course before, and she's always a dark horse right now. I think she needs to get out of her head a little bit as far as, there's a lot of publicity and everything else, but if she can just play her game, then she's going to do it. Other than that, Owen Scoggins. She was very impressed at D-Glow. I got to do the lead card crowd control a couple times at D-Glow there, and it was fun to watch, and she's just solid.
All right, so Dick's picking two choices here for his dark horse. Seth, drive home why it's Silva.
Oh, come on. Yeah, so for Silva, I think that it's the time on the course and the competitiveness that she's had this season specifically. So, not to mention that I've only picked one and I went all in. Dick came up with two. Owen's sort of an easy pick because she won last weekend. I don't even know if that makes her a dark horse. But more importantly, Dick pointed out the reason why Natalie's probably not the dark horse to pick, and that's that she's been in her own head, right? She hasn't been performing well this season at elite events. Her best performances this year have been in fields where there have been 10 or less competitors, whereas Silva has gone toe-to-toe in some of the biggest events in Europe this year, and I think she has what it takes to take it down.
Dick, help yourself out here. Can you win?
Well, Natalie, first of all, has won a lot of A-tier events that had way more than 10 women in them. And as far as the Elite Series stuff, how many has she even gotten to play in this year? She's still just getting back in the swing of things once they figured all that out. She's got the skills, she's got the will. It's just figuring out her, her mind space and just relaxing a little bit more, I think. But I wouldn't be surprised to at least see her on the podium, and if not, take it all down.
All right, thanks, Dick, for doubling down on your statement there. If we're looking at dark horse, though, I think Seth's right. Owen Scoggins kind of gets crossed off of that after a win last weekend. Silva's a great dark horse pick. I love the point Seth had to back it up. Natalie Ryan, I think, by definition, is borderline dark horse, but I think definitely qualifies under that category. I think if we're going points to back up your question, though, Seth has to win this duel. So Seth's going to go to 2 wins on the episode. So Brian's got a chance to sweep, or we're going to have a 3-way tie in the tie-break round. Trevor, it's always up to you against Brian on the last duel. We'll see how you do this time here. Does MPO really, truly have a favorite heading into Worlds? Trevor?
No, there is no favorite this year. I think this is the most wide open we've ever seen a world championship. You've got an injured Paul. You got a Ricky who's playing decent, but he's not playing up to Ricky standards. Eagles kind of in and out. I just don't think you have a favorite. I think you've got a couple of people that are up there, but I think this is the most wide open we've ever seen the Worlds. At Smug's Notch, it could come down to one OB or a bad tree kick at Brewster, which also is probably one of the coolest places to play Worlds, if you ask me, because it is such a score separator. But you have to be on your game there, and a lot of people right now are on their game. So I think we have the most wide open World Championships we ever had. I don't think we have a favorite, and that's what I'm sticking with.
All right, Trevor says no. Brian, where are you going here?
It's a real shame that this isn't bet on Caesars or something, so we could see what the actual odds would be. Because by default, there would be a favorite. There would be one person that has better odds than everyone else. So to answer your question, yes, there is a favorite. Now, who is that favorite is the better question. But I'm going to add on to that, and I'm going to say, I think, after reading a little Instagram post right before I got on this, there's a young man from Huntington Beach, California. He's pretty good at the game. I hear he's done it a few times. In fact, I think he's done it 6 times. I don't care if he's coming off an injury. I don't care if he's on one leg. I don't care if somebody steals his disc the night before and he has to play the whole course with a Luna and a Buzz. Paul McBeth is always the favorite until he no longer plays Worlds, in my opinion. So that's that. He would be the betting favorite. I like those odds.
All right, so Paul McBeth is the favorite, says Brian. Trevor, you say there's no favorite. Respond to Brian's comments, Trevor, and double down on your own.
He just likes to take the easy way out all the time to try to get a win. That's really what it is. There is no favorite this year. You have too many players destroying courses. Calvin Heimberg's been playing great. Gannon Buhr's been playing great. Ricky's been playing solid. Paul in Europe was playing good. Corey Ellis is a super dark horse that could win this thing. There are so many players out there right now that could win this tournament, and there was no true favorite. And I think this is the first time that we could really say that in the World Championships. Go ahead and use your easy way out with the GOAT, but I just don't think that's the right answer right now.
I would agree that all of those players that were mentioned would 100% have some of the better odds in this activity. Definitely top 5 players you all just listed. Unfortunately, there's only one guy in the field that's done it 6 times. Not 5 like you said a few weeks ago. 6 times. Thank you.
Wow, we're recalling Trevor from a couple of weeks back. His slip up saying McBeth only had 5 world titles. Just rubbing it in there. As far as this question goes, though, I think it's a very interesting question to talk about because, like Trevor's saying, we really don't know if there's a favorite this year because of the diversity we've had across the podiums at all these events. So I got to back Trevor up on this point. Sends us to a 3-way tiebreaker. Seth, you're up first. Brian, you're up second. Trevor, you're up third. The question is, does par really matter, Seth?
54 Ironman par. There is no such thing as anything different. No, I think that in all reality, par is just a number to help tell you how difficult a hole is. When it comes to the end result, the score is the same. So it really depends on what you're looking at when you ask the question, does par matter? Does par matter for a specific hole when you look at it in regards to the length of the hole? Probably. Does par matter at the end of the round whenever you've played toe-to-toe with everyone in the field? Not really, because it's an aggregate score that you have all earned, and you're comparing against the end result score and not the par. And so that starts off the statement of 54 Ironman par. At the end of the day, everything basically washes out to a par 3.
All right, Brian, you're up.
Yeah, that's a super easy answer, Seth. Yes. But in all reality, the word par matters so much to our sport. You know how much I know? You see it at every tournament. You see it on every tee sign. The commentators cannot stop talking about the par, and then the score based upon those par. So therefore you can get a birdie, or you can get an eagle, or you can get an ace, or you can get a bogey. We need all of that language in our sport to make it more entertaining and to make it a digestible product to people that don't know disc golf. So the word par is very, very important. Does it matter? I don't know, Seth. I don't really care. But the word par is extremely important to our sport when it comes to bringing people in, allowing them to connect something to golf or to other sports that use an average so they can have the similar language so we can bring more people into our sport. And so that Terry and Nate can get excited when someone gets an eagle and then does it again 3 holes later. It's very important.
Trevor, you've got the benefit of going third and hearing these two go
No,
first. Where are you going?
I don't get the benefit of going third. I got like the worst answers ever to listen to. Par does not matter, guys. When it comes down to it, the paycheck is what matters. I can throw 30 shots or I can throw 700 shots. It doesn't matter what par is. If I beat everybody else with the least amount of shots, I win the most money, hands down. Par does not matter.
Simple, sweet, short, to the point for Trevor. Seth, respond to those two.
Yeah, so I think that Trevor's basically agreeing with me, and Brian's talking about semantics. He's not even talking about the actual background of how it operates. And so when we look at this, I think that it still goes back to the question, what are we talking about when we talk about par? Are we talking about how we're looking at a specific hole? Then maybe it does matter. But at the end of the day, to Trevor's point, if we're talking about what we're doing at the end of a round, we're all just throwing throws, and that adds up to a score at the end. What the hole said each time that we went up to it doesn't end up mattering.
Brian?
Again, it's a debate podcast. I had to take the opposite. Listen to a broadcast and try to imagine it without the word par or the word bogey or the word birdie, and think about how boring that would be. Go out and play with your friends. You're going to ask, did you get a birdie or did a par? Not, did you get a total aggregate score of 53? No one talks like that. It is encompassed in our game. It is very, very important.
Trevor, they both kind of swept your points to the side.
They're so wrong, though. Here's the thing. Brian, when somebody asks if I got a par or a bogey, they don't do that in disc golf. They ask it, what'd you get? Did you get a 4? Did you get a 3? Did you get a 5? They don't ask if they got a par. They don't ask if they got a 3. Because let's face it, dude, I played disc golf at Ironman 54. If you say I got a par, I'm usually thinking in my head a 3 because that's what it is. It's just a number. It doesn't really matter. Par does not really matter. If I have 17 strokes less than you, I win. I don't care what the number is. I don't care what it's called. When you're saying that we need it for the game, we stole it from another game. Like, par is just par because it's golf. It doesn't matter. If I shoot less strokes than you, I win, and that's all that matters.
All right, so Seth and Trevor kind of say the same idea with a few different points in there. Brian goes the complete opposite direction. Brian, I did love where you went with it. However, I thought they countered you pretty well, so we're going to knock you out of the argument here. Seth versus Trevor to determine the winner. You both said very, very similar things. Trevor, I loved your rebuttal points. I think if you had a strong opening argument alongside your rebuttal, I think I could give you the win here, to be honest. But Seth had two great takes here, two great statements. Seth's going to win episode 23. Seth, the floor is yours. What do you got for us?
Yeah, so now that I have the floor, I'm going to talk a little bit about spectating. I think that this is an up-and-coming part of our sport. I think that it's something that people like to talk about, but and compare experiences. And so as someone who's been to a significant amount of, actually, I've been to every Pro Tour event, let's be honest. I'm going to give you the down low on which ones to go spectate at because they're just great experiences. The top of the list for me is Worlds, what's coming up this weekend. Not Worlds specifically, but Smuggler's Notch. You don't have very many opportunities in the sport to stay at a resort that is on the same property as the course. It's something that really can't be beat. But if you can't make it all the way up to Vermont, I tell you personally, I never thought I was going to when I first got into the sport. Choose something a little bit closer to you. There's several great events out on tour that are perfect for spectating. If you're looking for a low-cost spectating option, Jonesboro is a great one to go to. If you're looking for one that has an AM side experience, Ledgestone is definitely number one, but very close to number two is D-Glow. D-Glow definitely has one of the most electric spectating galleries in the sport. And then if you're on the West Coast, I'm definitely going to go with Portland over OTB, but they're very close to each other there too. And the reality is that there's also silver events out on the West Coast that are just as good to go spectate as elite events. And so all of this to say, get out there and spectate. If you like the pro side of the sport, it is completely different to go see it in person. You get to go see all of the pros, not just the top two cards. You get to go buy products. you get to be around more people than just your local club or your buddies that you're playing with. And so go out, spectate, and hopefully, maybe I'll even see you up here at Worlds this week.
Thank you, Seth. I love the direction you took that. No one's really gone that direction before with a victory speech. So all you guys at home who are just sitting on the couch watching some Jomez or some Disc Golf Network every weekend, get out, go spectate. Those are some top events for you to really experience the game in person. So thanks for that, Seth. Congrats again to you for the win. Trevor, you battled very hard. I almost thought you were going to take a back-to-back win here. Brian, good stuff again. And Dick, thanks so much for filling in this week. We appreciate all you guys. Everybody at home, thanks for watching episode 23. We will catch you all next week. Enjoy your weekend.